Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be sharing 10 movies that I consider to be perfect movies. Now, this is obviously a completely subjective list, so everyone is going to have their own movies in which they consider perfect. So you may not agree with all my picks, but I think I've got some pretty good ones. So let's jump into the intro and we'll get started. Welcome once again, my name is Austin and this channel is all about helping you to dig deeper and go further to better understand faith and film and everything that's in between. If that sounds exciting to you, make sure you click the subscribe button that is down below so you don't miss out on any future content. Now, I was actually inspired to do this video based on a friend of mine named John, who has a channel called PlatX2, and he did another similar list of 10 movies that he considers to be perfect movies. So I want to thank you, John, for that idea, and I'm looking forward to sharing my picks with you as well. Starting things off, we have Terminator 2: Judgment Day. This movie is an absolute masterclass in science fiction action cinema. The just relentless pace that this movie moves at, going from action scene to action scene, is fantastic. And not only are the action scenes great, they're so practically done and utilizing just great sets, great filmmaking, and just great ways to capture and put all of that great talent on display. Besides that, we get some fantastic science fiction elements. Not only do we have great practical effects in this movie, but there's still some groundbreaking for that time CGI that still holds up really well today for the T-1000 character of the main villain for this movie. It's a fantastic villain that still holds up to this day. This movie, in my opinion, can still go toe-to-toe and exceed most action movies that come out today. It's one of the best. It stands the test of time, and I consider it to be an absolutely perfect movie all around, between the writing, the direction, the characters, the performances. All of it is fantastic. The music is really great as well. I love this movie, and I really enjoyed revisiting it last year, I think it was, for the first time in a while. I was introducing my wife to the franchise. She quite liked it as well, and this was just a huge reminder to me of just how fantastic this movie is, and it really stands the test of time. Next, you know this would not be my personal top 10 perfect movies if I did not talk about Lord of the Rings. There's probably nothing I can say about these movies I haven't already said on the channel, but just everything about them, similar to Terminator 2, just they stand the test of time. They still look absolutely fantastic and sound excellent to this day. There's a reason that this franchise, and even dating back to the original books that these are based on, have just stayed so relevant within fantasy and just world building culture. It's just fantastically done and beautifully put to screen throughout these films. We get amazing, fantastic performances throughout. The world building and the exploration of Middle Earth through the lens of New Zealand that Peter Jackson uses is beautiful and breathtaking every single time. These movies are just incredible examples of not only great talent, but passion that is felt throughout each and every one of these films. So I truly love these and absolutely consider them to be perfect movies, and they definitely had to make my list. Next, we have what's probably my go-to pick when I just want to blurt out any movie that I consider absolutely perfect, and that is The Matrix. This movie is fantastic. Similarly to the other ones that I've mentioned so far, it's from the 90s. It has stood the test of time. I still consider this to be one of, if not the greatest action movie ever made. Similar to Terminator 2, the world building that they do throughout this movie of just diving us into something that is so original and new and unknown to audiences at the time is just breathtaking. This is definitely a movie I wish I could have gone back and watched when it came out first in theaters, because it has truly changed filmmaking and movies since its release. It does a fantastic job of just introducing us to this amazing world. We get really good characters along the way. There are just fantastic themes about just your purpose in life, where you're going, how much control you have over that, and just the world around us and how much of it is something that we can take for granted. It's just fantastic storytelling, great action cinema, and just a movie that I love watching each and every time. Definitely a movie that I consider to be absolutely perfect. Next, for my fourth pick, we have The Raid. Now, this is a movie that I will always recommend to people, especially those interested in action movies, because it's a foreign film, and I believe it's Portuguese, but it is just some of the absolute best and greatest action that I've ever seen on screen. This movie is a perfect example of just a bare bones structure and story, but just perfectly executed and moving from set piece to set piece while feeling like it's a natural progression for the film. There's not a moment that happens in this movie that is wasted. There's not a piece of dialogue or a sequence that feels like it could have been left out on the cutting room floor. This movie is just wound so tight. The tension is fantastic and over the top. And every time I watch this, I see any kind of reaction for it on YouTube, I have to watch it because I just love seeing people's first time experience with this film, because it's so well executed, and one that we really get to see more of in the sequel. But I'm a little more preferential towards the first one just because I love how tight everything is wound in it, where they definitely delve into more things in the sequel, making the movie longer and stuff. But I just love how simplistic this first one is, and it's a perfectly executed film. Next, in the fifth slot, we have what is probably the greatest epic movie ever made, and that is Gladiator. Ridley Scott is firing on all cylinders with this movie, and he has Russell Crowe just giving probably one of his greatest performances. I just love the scale of this movie. Everything is so large and epic, while at the same time we get this very intimate story about a man who has everything taken from him, but still seeks to do something meaningful and purposeful with his life. I love the character arc we get for the character of Maximus. Joaquin Phoenix gives a great performance as a villain you just love to hate. It's so well done. There's so many different intricacies to each of the characters. I just love that the movie does all of these huge and epic things, but doesn't sacrifice on character. We get the best of both worlds. You truly feel the scale of it all, yet at the same time, the intimacy of the story and all that there is packed into it. It's truly an epic of huge proportions, and still one of the greatest movies ever made, one that I consider to be absolutely perfect. Next, we have a movie that I don't think I've talked about all too much on this channel, but one that I really do just love and cherish and consider a perfect movie, obviously. That is Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. This first Jurassic Park movie is a brilliant film, obviously. It's totally hugely popular still to this day, and the franchise is still running to this day, but this is definitely still the very best of them all. There is groundbreaking special effects, and there is still groundbreaking practical effects, and the blend of the two is so perfectly done to really just make this movie just feel so magical and special. There's something just really unique and special about this movie. We get great performances by all of the main cast throughout this as well. And I love movies that are a really good blend of multiple different genres. I'll talk about another one in just a little bit, but this one, another Steven Spielberg movie actually, but this one in particular does a great job with its science fiction as well as its just sense of adventure. It's a very adventurous movie, and there's even some kind of like horror elements too, because there's just a reverence to the unknown of the dinosaurs and the creatures that they are. So it's a perfect blend of just scares, thrills, excitement, fun. It's just one of those movies that blends so many genres together very well and just executes everything that it sets out to do flawlessly. So I think this movie is just a great, fun adventure, and one that I consider to be an absolute treasure and one of the best perfect movies. Next, we have another Steven Spielberg movie I just mentioned, and that is Jaws. I go back and forth so much on whether or not Jaws or Jurassic Park is my favorite Steven Spielberg movie. Each of them does so much similar, but at the same time so much different. Obviously, this movie was made much earlier than Jurassic Park, so it relies a whole lot more on practical stuff because just special effects weren't really a thing for this one. But I just love the story behind the scenes for this one and how it was made. It's such a great underdog story of Spielberg just truly being passionate about getting this film made, and I'm so glad that he got to do it and it came out as fantastically as he wanted. This movie still makes people scared to go in the water, which is just a testament to how impactful this movie is on American culture in particular. This movie does a great job with not showing so much, but communicating so much. What I mean by that is especially the shark of Jaws, or Bruce as it was behind the scenes. They do a great job not showing him very much on screen, but really communicating the danger that his mysterious presence brings. It does a great job of just giving you those little tiny hints and drops of him here and there, but his presence is felt throughout the whole film, and it's just greatly done. We get great performances from all the main cast. They all have great chemistry, and then similarly to Jurassic Park, this movie blends genres really well. It was like the first blockbuster, which is awesome that this is the first blockbuster that we got, and created a fantastic genre of movies. But besides that, it's very adventurous, similar to Jurassic Park. There's a great sense of adventure to this movie, especially when they're pursuing the shark to try and hunt it down, while at the same time it leans very heavily, even more than Jurassic Park, into that horror genre of the huge fear that these people in the town have for these shark attacks that are happening. So just a brilliant film, amazingly executed. Steven Spielberg, definitely one of the greatest filmmakers of our time, and I consider this movie to be absolutely perfect. Next, in the 8th slot, toning things down a bit, we have what might be my favorite drama movie, and that is Goodwill Hunting. This movie is absolutely incredible. It brings me to tears every time I watch it. It's so beautiful. It tells an incredible story about someone just finding what they truly want in life. Obviously, as many people know, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon wrote this movie together. Definitely one of the greatest scripts ever written. And besides that, they give incredible performances in this movie, notably Matt Damon, who plays the main character in this one. And then besides that, we have one of, if not the greatest performance from Robin Williams as the professor therapist in this movie for Matt Damon's character to talk to. I love this movie. It's something that's come very much like a comfort movie for me, while at the same time it just breaks my heart every single time because it's so beautiful. Like I said, this movie brings me to tears every single time. This is another one that I love watching reactions to on YouTube because it's so just a beautiful story and so well done. You just feel like you're a part of these characters' lives as you're following along with the story and the events that are taking place. If for some reason this is a movie you've not seen, it's absolutely fantastic, and definitely one that I consider one of the perfect movies that has ever been made. Wrapping things up with my last two picks, we're going to go with some superhero movies. First is The Dark Knight. This movie, another one, how can I say anything that's not already been said about this film? It is fantastic. Not only do we get great performances, which are kind of the backbone of this movie, we get just this relentless story that we get told through the lens of Christian Bale's Batman, as well as Heath Ledger's Joker. Obviously, as many people know and state, that definitely one of the greatest villain performances, especially within a comic book movie, that we've ever gotten from Heath Ledger. Joker is completely iconic and will possibly never be topped. This movie does a great story of just the cat and mouse of the back and forth and how close Batman and Joker are, but at the same time how different they are. There's such a thin line between the two of them, and it's explored so well throughout this movie. I just get wrapped up in this one every single time. The sound for this film, the scale of it all is so huge, and at the same time you just feel so a part of it all and so invested in the events that are taking place. Definitely one of the greatest comic book movies, obviously, but also one of the best movies ever made, one that I absolutely consider to be a perfect movie. And finally, another superhero pick, another movie that I consider to be truly epic, similar to Gladiator, but in a completely different way for completely different reasons. That is Avengers Infinity War. There is just something truly special about this movie that just encapsulates 10 years of films that just come to this huge climax that we get in this film of the story and just the relentless pace that it moves at. Similar to how I mentioned with Terminator 2, just this movie moves at such a fast pace, but you never feel lost with it all. You're wrapped up in each and every moment and each and every character and each of their encounters. There's so much that happens across this film, but you feel invested in each and every moment of it because of all the history that we have with the characters leading up to this one. Obviously, we get top-notch performances from very many of the superhero characters that are in this one, most notably, obviously, the character of Iron Man that gets continued in the Avengers Endgame one, but truly an astonishing achievement in filmmaking, especially within superhero genre. The scale of this movie is so huge that it's a miracle this movie got made and was executed so well. Even besides that, I haven't even talked about Thanos yet. One of the greatest villain performances, all up there probably with Heath Ledger's Joker. Josh Brolin does a great job, especially for a character who's kind of been in the background for the past 10 or so years. But when he drops in on this movie, his presence is felt, and he leaves such a lasting impact, not only with the characters in the story of this movie, but with the audience and us as the viewers. This movie truly left so many of us in shock with that twist ending that they were able to pull off and do so well. This movie does just everything that it needed to, and is such a great accomplishment and achievement, and definitely one that I consider to be a perfect movie. So that wraps up my list of 10 movies that I consider to be perfect movies. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, my list is subjective to obviously my opinion, but I would love to hear a bunch of the movies that you consider to be perfect as well. So join me in the comments. I would love to hear from you and be able to chat about movies that you consider to be perfect as well. So thank you for sticking around to the end of this one. I'll see you in the next video.